We have shown time and again, looking at our paperwork, and this is after we've done our selection. So we know that this isn't skewed because of our selection process. But when we look at applicants who have worked with a community organization versus applicants who have done it on their own, by far the ones that are more successful are the ones that worked with a local community partner. So in the past, if someone didn't get selected, we just said, hey, we encourage you to go work with a community partner, connect with them and ask them for some application coaching. This time, in addition to saying that, we're giving them an immediate next step. In that email, there was an embedded link. If they clicked on the link, they could give us their contact information and basically give us permission to take their information and forward it to a local community partner. We sent that on Friday. We checked this morning. Out of the 393 applications, you subtract the 30 that got selected, we're still at 330 some applicants. We only had 16 applicants take us up on the offer so far. So it's a little sad. We really wish more of these applicants would take us up on the opportunity to work with our community partners, because you guys really know what it is that these neighborhoods want to see come in, and can also help support them in finding the resources necessary to bring their kind of project vision to reality. So Rodney, I'll be calling you soon.
We're ready.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Sophia. Does anyone have any questions or any discussion around the NOF presentation? All right, going once, going twice. Got my DPD West Region colleague, Ethan Lassiter, another exciting opportunity in the community here that's moving along nicely. He's going to come and talk to us about the responses that we received to the RFP for the large Roosevelt and Costner opportunity site. So Ethan, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll hand it over to you. He's going to share a PDF that he put together summarizing the responses. So it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Brian. So as Brian said, I'm kind of covering at a high level what we've received for the Roosevelt and Costner site. We'll be doing a more detailed version of this at Alderman Scott's ward meeting on Thursday evening, but want to just run through this. This document will also be posted online, we believe later today. So I'll run through it pretty quickly. Again, this is just a high level summary of this Roosevelt and Costner site. The goal above and beyond just kind of selling city land is, I'll zoom in so you can see, but first off that in reactivating the industrial site, job opportunities and wealth creating opportunities are created for the neighborhood, for local residents and for local organizations. So prioritizing, again, partnerships with local businesses, tenants or organizations, a local wealth strategy. And then two, how does a developer propose to mitigate negative impacts of reactivating a site that's been less than active for a while, involving additional traffic, circulation, hopefully adding kind of landscaping or public uses, or not overwhelming people with parking in the proposal. So very briefly, I'll run through the eight responses received. And a lot more detail will be at Thursday's presentation about kind of the next steps and the community engagement process and the evaluation process and community feedback into that process. But again, McCaffrey and KMA companies, along with a safe haven in North Lawndale, submitted a proposal. This will be a regular feature. A lot talk about last mile distribution or cold storage for food and beverage or warehouses. Those are kind of the three main categories of industrial buildings that could go into kind of an urban context or be built nowadays. Again, there's a couple buildings distribution. This was the only proposal to suggest housing. They included a 60-unit housing, multifamily housing building, and then talked about a North Lawndale wealth engine as a kind of co-op owned coffee shop and marketplace and entrepreneurial support center. A second proposal by Related Midwest partnered with 548 Development, AJ Patton, is again for industrial uses, but added a Lawndale Innovation Center is what they're proposing on the south property to advance more small business and entrepreneurial support systems. They can provide more detail at that in a presentation to the community, which is the intended next step of all of this. So a very brief version of that. There's a partnership of the Cubs Foundation and Pritzker Realty, somewhat of a overlapping entity, for a Cubs Youth Academy campus on the south portion of the property, and then a industrial facility on the north parcel, on the north part of the property. And again, mixing typical kind of industrial uses with this multi-purpose athletic facility and outdoor fields and community space. From Lawndale United, which is a partnership of CNI Group, East Lake Management, and MK Asset Management. This is really heavily industrial with kind of employment training and entrepreneurial support center space in it as well, and a lot of kind of existing community partners listed, but focusing on building out industrial spaces throughout the property. And then getting closer to the end, Matanke was proposing, again, a somewhat similar industrial property covering the majority of the space. They suggested, per earlier conversations, maybe a rooftop baseball field. So that's more unique. But again, focusing on job training facilities, retail along Roosevelt, and then industrial uses that can come in many different sizes, or an incubator space for small businesses and industrial users. And then the last to complete this, RK5, the name of a kind of larger co-op. All of these entities say they will have kind of equity ownership stake in the project, but it's mixing industrial uses with a community athletic center and actually just community center as well. So again, you have somewhat similar industrial warehouse and cold storage uses, but you also have a large athletic and recreation facility, and then a community building housing this locally owned coffee shop, co-working space, artist space, and workshops. And more unique site plan that'll be more visible in what's presented on Thursday. And this same document will be released shortly. Then very briefly covering on two that were suggesting kind of other options, but weren't full responses to the RFP. A developer more kind of suggested they wanted to add community representations onto their development team and then start the process, or then engage with the community on their input. They also had a unique suggestion for buying the city land in kind of a long-term process, but detailed that process, but otherwise didn't present a vision for the site yet. And then the last is another kind of existing entity, Nationwide Furniture, simply suggesting that they could use the space to expand their existing facilities, add, kind of a showroom and warehouse space, but wasn't, obviously didn't provide images or material, just kind of suggested they could do that with the property. So this is a very high level review of the 8 responses we got. There will be more details about how this then goes into a kind of community presentation and feedback process, and how we'll advance determining a finalist. But any initial questions about these 8 responses?
And Ethan, just really quick, can you give a little bit of timeline for the Lawndale line planning study that we're in the process of preparing right now. So that'll, for just everyone's reference, it's going to tie very importantly into this site, the vacated Altenheim rail line that, you know, pretty much bisects the Roosevelt Costner site. We're in the process of, we're hoping to soon begin a planning study that'll look at that. So if you can just give a brief timeline, Ethan.
Yeah, we should get our consultant or their larger team on board. We hope early February. We think a kind of first community visioning or kickoff will be in March, and the plan is that it's a 6-month plan. So towards the end of summer, we hopefully have that plan built out.
We'll definitely be updating the group here on, you know, upcoming community meetings, whether it's in these meetings or via email. So yeah, I know this is a lot to take in, and like Ethan said, there's going to be a community meeting for this. There's going to be multiple opportunities for stakeholders, community members to weigh in. So keeping that in mind, that we're not going to be evaluating them in the roundtable, do you want to take some time for comments or questions?
Hi, this is Jesse Green. As we look at development throughout North Lawndale, one of the things we at NLCCC have committed to, and anyone that is bringing development to our community, is that there is a community and community involvement piece. Ethan alluded to that, and I know that the alderman is very supportive and encourages that. So in this process, are we making it a requirement for folks to contract with one of the folks and groups in the community to do community engagement, whether that's NLCCC or whatever other group there is that's out there? But I think there needs to be a requirement that they engage with one of those groups prior to being awarded anything in North Lawndale.
Yeah, it wasn't specifically about engagement, but having local representation in your development team or your partnership is a part of the RFP requirements and is part of the requirements during the community evaluation process as well.
Okay.
So someone doesn't have to have an engagement entity on their team, but they don't also have to be received well by the community if they don't have that. So I'm just saying it might hurt their chances if they don't. But
so how is the community with saying that, Ethan, when you said, but they may not be well received by the community? We don't want to be reactionary to this. We don't want you to award them the grant, the projects, and then you have a bad reaction. This is how we've done it in the past, and that's not what we want to do moving forward. So we want to get ahead of this and make sure that we have a partner that the community is going to receive and be supportive of. That's what makes a successful project. So I think we need to think through this a bit more of how and what it is that we're requiring of that particular developer, all the developers moving forward, and how we embed that within the proposals. This I have to tell you, and we've had this conversation with Brian about something else, but this is not North Lawndale 2001. This is a totally different North Lawndale, and Richard is shaking his head. So we're trying to help to avoid some of this.
That's right.
Yes.
I want to jump on with what Jesse is saying. It's really important because in addition to making sure that there is representation on these teams, or we're really not interested in them, coming before us because there's a disconnect. I also want to make sure that there's transparency around the number of jobs being generated and types of jobs that are generated, whether they're full-time, part-time, temporary. A lot of people bundle their hires in construction, and then when you go visit, you don't see folk from North Lawndale. So I just want to make sure that that is a very important measurement as well. that we're just not gonna let folk come in and not hire from this community. The unemployment rate here is 27%, and that's ridiculous when we have so much new movement coming into the community. We have a goal of reducing the unemployment rate, as the alderman proudly says, and embarrasses me every time, that we're going to reduce the unemployment rate in North Lawndale by 10% by 2024. And that can't happen if we don't hold these employers and these developers accountable. Thank you.
And I would just like to kind of piggyback a bit on what Brenda said, and that is, you have a group of people that's on this line now. You have to use the talent and the experience that you have to help you. We're not here just to listen to you present to us what your vision is. We're here to be partners with you and help you navigate these very treacherous waters that you're about to encounter in North Lawndale. And I think if we're talking about true partnership, guys, we have to make sure that it runs both ways. Let us help you with this, because it doesn't have to be hard. Brenda's been doing this work for workforce development since I've known her. That's how I met her. Since I've known her. And Richard has been doing housing, and I've been doing engagement. Use us to help you to develop those proposals as we put them out there.
This is Richard. I have a question, Ethan. I know this is kind of high level. I'm kind of a numbers guy. And so for me, it'd be helpful if sources and uses, even if they're draft, what numbers folks are looking like. And maybe that's going to be at the community meeting. But sometimes folks come and they do, pretty renderings and whatever, and there's never any numbers. And so for me, I got to see the financials of what are they saying this is going to cost, and then what are the sources of that. So
yep, more on that on Thursday. And everything that's been said about the intention of the process, about separating construction jobs and temporary jobs from time jobs and permanent jobs. Yeah, that's certainly our intention and what will be shown in this process. And this is the whole point of this is to engage this group, not to present it to you so you can listen as we make a decision without you.
Well, Brian, this kind of gets to our conversation we had last week, Brian, about making sure we had the right people at the table to have these discussions. So you can see from this discussion that we need to make sure we're doing that.
Yeah, I would just add to what Ethan has to say that the conversations that we've had around the Ogden Avenue RFP, around the community's involvement, I mean, granted, this is technically not an Invest Southwest RFP, but just in terms of engagement and, a collaborative process in choosing the project is going to take a, similar approach. And that we want to make sure that this is, not just a unilateral decision. I mean, it won't be, from DPD or the mayor's office. So, we're going to apply that same, like I said, the same approach and the same level of inclusiveness to this as well. And, Ethan is available as project manager for this to, if you feel that your voice has not been heard through the various outlets that are out there, then the engagement that we're doing around this, you can reach out to him directly as well, just in the same way that, I make myself available. Anyone else? The last item is relatively short, summarizing the pre-bid conference. So I don't mind taking like 5 more minutes to talk about this if others have comments and feedback. And also, Richard, too, we're going to have our financial incentives team, doing an analysis of this. And Ethan has, is a good person to be taking the lead on this, because he is also the project manager for the Austin, Chicago Avenue Invest Southwest corridor, and he is leading the redevelopment of the Laramie State Bank building. And so he has a group of very vocal and committed stakeholders out in Austin who are really wanting to be a part of that process. I attend all those roundtable meetings, just to see how things are going over there and how that process is playing out. So, you know, I mean, as you know, my colleague, of course I support him, but like, I mean, he's done an amazing job of incorporating them into that process. And, you know, I know I'll do the same for this project as well. Did anyone else have any feedback? You want to weigh in on this? Okay, well, I'm going to pull the presentation back up here just a moment. So thanks a lot, Ethan. So on Wednesday last week, some of you may have been in attendance, but we held the pre-bid conference for the Ogden Avenue Rfp site. And this is just an opportunity for interested parties, particularly, you know, pointed towards, you know, developers and other entities that might be part of a, you know, proposal team to pose questions, you know, beyond what they've read in the RFP, if there's anything else that's kind of outstanding that we didn't address. I like to think, you know, did a pretty solid job on that RFP document, but hey, no, I'm just kidding. We got some really good questions and good inquiries from it. So just as a quick, you know, refresher, as I already kind of alluded to, we had these 3 RFPs that came out in the first phase, including that Austin RFP for Laramie State Bank. We also had Inglewood and Auburn Gresham. Now the second phase of projects that we released at the end of November obviously includes North Lawndale, Brownsville, New City / Back of the Yards around 47th and Ashland area, and South Chicago near Commercial Avenue and 89th. And then we're looking at early spring having another release that covers the remaining 4 corridors, Invest Southwest corridors that haven't had RFPs released yet. Again, just to go over our timeline, we're in this step 2 phase right now, which includes, you know, the pre-bid conference, and you know, we're hoping that you know, interested parties are, you know, working to put together their responses to it, looking ahead to that March 30th deadline date. And then we're going to be taking, you know, about 6 weeks to evaluate the proposals. And as we just covered in, you know, the last agenda item, this is going to include, you know, outreach not just to this group, but you know, local elected officials and the community at large. You know, we'll have an opportunity to you know, give their feedback. So I mean, it's gonna be a intense and complex process, and you know, just like with Roosevelt Costner, it's going to be a lot of dissenting opinions and a lot of different you know, factors that we need to look at. You know, again, you know, like the financial feasibility, you know, the land use, and you know, urban design fit with the rest of the corridor. So you know, it's going to be a long process. And then, you know, we're hoping that by end of the second quarter of this year that we'll have a developer selected and begin to move forward with the planning phases of it. We had about 55 attendees that, you know, doesn't count the city and partner attendees. And, you know, this was pretty broad group, obviously included interested community members, developers, planning and architecture firms, general contractors, real estate property management firms, and representation from nonprofits and foundations as well. And you can see in the image there, just to give you an idea of where all of this information is housed. If you go to the same page where you would download the RFP, we're going to continually be updating that with you know, new information. Like you can watch the video from the pre-bid conference. There's already a Q&A, a link to a Q&A on there. For some reason, if you go to that page, it's not in this image here, but you can see there'll be a Q&A form, because we've already kind of tried to anticipate some of the questions. So that's already up there. We'll be adding to it based on the questions that we got from the conference. I haven't been able to finish it yet, but I hope to have it, by Wednesday of this week. So we'll turn it around in a week. And so I'm not going to go in depth answering all these questions. It'll be in the Q&A form, and a lot of this I've covered already in these meetings. I think the group here is pretty well informed on this project. At least those who have, been a part of it long term. But, first question here, just asking about the history. And actually, before I rattle through these, I want to thank Alderman Scott and Rodney, and as well as Commissioner Cox, too. Were all excellent support for this meeting. I thought it was really nice to see everybody kind of coming together to help, address some of the questions and comments that we got. And I definitely appreciated the support, not being the only one to, take and try to answer questions here. So it was a big help. And I thought it was nice to see, kind of showed unity around this project. So there was a question around, history of North Lawndale, population change over the decline, and how the loss of population over time and how that impacted the project. What was previously on this site? How did we come up with our future vision? Alderman Rodney, definitely good help in answering that. I'm not going to take on the history of North Lawndale in the few minutes we have left here. And also to that point, there was a question around, the declining population in the community, being a concern for the viability of this project. I think that's something we've talked about a lot here, that this is a community there's a lot of opportunity for, bringing folks back and, attracting new residents, from outside the community, and growing. But in terms of the demand for retail and it being an impact on that, we did that market analysis that shows that North Lawndale residents are spending upwards of $100 million outside the community in restaurants, retail. So we feel pretty confident in that number. There was some question about the site across the street being included in some of the visuals. We explained that that's a completely separate development, but we want these two to be complementary, just in terms of the way that they engage the corridor. So, I've talked about this before here. That's in a project that's in the early planning stages. We've got a zoning intake meeting for it this week with East Lake Management and Pastor Hunter of, I believe it's the New Mount Zion is the church. Apologies if I got that wrong, but we're looking at about 60 to 70 units of housing that are going to be in there. And that number is, can change. There was a question about vacating the alley next to the site. We've indicated in the RFP that that's certainly in play. I've talked to CDOT about it to help, consolidate the parcels that are out there. Are design firms that are not on the city's pre-qualified list at a disadvantage? No. And that's in reference to the list that DPD released of pre-qualified architects, planning firms, came out, later, like in the fall of 2020. Are we going to be conducting a phase 2 environmental study for the site? So if you go to that page that has the links for all the documents on the RFP, we released the phase 1 ESA. This is a site that's probably going to need some attention in terms of the environmental remediation. So we are in the process, the city's in the process of conducting a phase 2 study, and we hope to have that, by the time we have a selected developer. Is the amount of commercial versus residential development flexible? Yes, we're not putting any, requirements on a certain percentage of this and that, as long as, the project is financially feasible. Obviously, the way that the resources the city has to chip in can really be an impact on what kind of development happens there, but, we're not saying no to anything. And I guess I would skip down the potential to rezone with some industrial, within the parameters of what the community's vision is. I think we put a pretty clear vision based on, what we've heard in this meeting and the workshop and in other forums. So, we're not going to accept like a transportation and, logistics project right in the middle of Ogden Avenue, most likely here, because that's not what we really heard that the community desires. And, you know, it doesn't really fit with the greater goals of Invest Southwest. So, you know, obviously, there are some preferred visions, but you're, you know, free to propose anything in your application here. And then there was some interest in, you know, the legacy of Route 66 and, you know, why the city hasn't really done more to, you know, attract tourism or to kind of try to foster that tourism. You know, I thought this was a really great comment, and it's something that we need to take into consideration. And, you know, there was some comment that was made about the potential to have a North Lawndale Historic Museum here that could also be kind of like a, you know, point of entry for the Route 66 historic, you know, trail. So, you know, I thought this was good. And these are the kind of things that we're hoping come out in the responses that we get, that the respondents are considering, you know, how to create a sense of place and tap into the rich legacy of North Lawndale and, you know, the community as a whole, not just Route 66. So yeah, that's pretty much goes over everything that we heard there. I don't know if anyone has any questions following the conference, but take any if you do. All right, well, we're on 3 o'clock here. I just want to mention quickly that, you know, now that it's the new year and Rodney and Jesse are definitely stepping into their role as corridor manager, you know, a little bit, you know, more confidently with the city kind of outlining that role a little bit better. They're going to be taking more of a, you know, leadership role in the meetings here, and we're going to try to, you know, kind of tag team the agenda items and, you know, determine what our agendas are going to look like, you know, cooperatively moving ahead here. And of course, always open to taking suggestions from the community members on this as well. You know, you want to spend an hour listening to me singing some songs on the guitar, open to that. But I don't really want to put you through that. So
We'll
Thank
figure out something else. All right.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Good to see
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.